Hi everyone, this is Alan Stout, Executive Director of Visit Luzerne County, and welcome to Next Stop, the Visit Luzerne County podcast. Here, each month, we'll be chatting with people from throughout northeastern Pennsylvania that help make our region a fun place to visit. We record the podcast right here at our office, inside the historic train station in Wilkes-Barre, which served as the next stop for countless trains for more than 100 years. Our next stop with our podcast will always be with someone we think you'll find interesting. Enjoy. So we are here today at the offices of Visit Luzerne County inside the historic train station in Wilkes-Barre with Joell Yarmel, the Executive Director of the FM Kirby Center. Yeah. Joell, welcome.
Thanks
for joining us on our very first podcast.
I know, I'm so honored.
Well,
Thanks.
You know, when we were thinking about how to kick this podcast off, the Kirby Center is such an important part of tourism here in Luzerne County. You literally do bring people in from out of town all the time, that stay overnight, that come in.
Yep.
For those that might be watching the podcast outside of Luzerne County, the FM Kirby Center is a beautiful 1,800-seat theater right on Public Square in downtown Wilkes-Barre. The theater itself is probably close to 80 years old, but it received extensive renovations in the mid-'80s.
Yep.
And opened in 1986 as the FM Kirby Center. There was a great community effort led by Al Boskoff to restore and renovate the theater and pretty much make it what it remains today, which is one of the crown jewels of northeastern Pennsylvania. So thank you for being here and talking to us about this beautiful venue.
Yeah, I'll talk every day, all day about the Kirby Center.
Well, let's talk about you.
Okay.
You've been at the Kirby for about 8 years now?
Yep, I started in 2016.
You've been the executive director for almost 3?
Yep, started in 2022.
So talk about that. Why did you want to work for the Kirby, and what was your role? You didn't start as executive director.
I did not.
You were promoted to that a couple of years ago. So why did you want to work there, and what was your first position at the Kirby?
My first position was membership and corporate sponsorship manager. I am a fundraiser.
Okay.
And I actually interviewed with Will Beekman, who was the executive director at the time, and I had been fundraising for special needs children and typical children in Hazleton at the Helping Hand Society. And he actually asked me during the interview, how would you transition from fundraising for that for arts education? And you know, across the board, school districts are eliminating or cutting from their budget pretty drastically arts and music and getting that type of curriculum into their classrooms. And what the Kirby Center does, I just fell in love with it. They have 5 stage performances a year for local school districts, and it's completely free for the schools. Our community and different grants underwrite that program, and that was it. That's how I would advocate for the Kirby in our area, is that we're providing this for children and for their teachers. Their teachers give us great testimonials in return, and aside from just being the hub for arts education and these mainstream headliners on our stage, we're also just doing so much good for the children.
And those are events that might be a little bit under the radar because they might not be out on the marquee because you're not selling tickets.
Oh, we'll put them on the marquee, but no, we're not selling tickets.
You're not promoting the ticket sales.
Correct.
And so I know my children, when they were at Good Shepherd Academy, they had a field trip there.
Okay.
Every year where they went over to the Kirby and toured the building and saw a show as part of that program.
Yep.
And so that was a really nice way for you to transition in some way and take some of your skill sets and some of your passions.
Exactly.
And bring them into the Kirby.
Yeah.
And then align them, of course, with what they were already doing.
Exactly.
So how long were you in that position? I guess about 4 years.
Yeah, I was in the development office, for the first 4 to 5 years. Yeah. Eventually getting to director of development, and then from there, had this amazing opportunity to slide in as executive director.
When you become the executive director, is that a decision that is made by the outgoing director, or is that a hire that is made by the board, or is a little bit of both?
It was the executive committee of the board of directors who then obviously takes it to a vote to the full board. So it's on that level.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, we're glad you landed there. Congratulations.
Thank you. I am too.
You've been doing a wonderful job. Growing up in this area because you're from northeastern Pennsylvania.
I
Where did
am.
you go to high school?
I went to Pittston area.
Pittston area.
Yeah,
High
I'm
School.
from Duryea.
So you grew up in the valley.
Yep.
You obviously, the Kirby was not unfamiliar to you.
Correct.
The upstairs, the offices
Right.
probably were.
Mm-hmm.
But do you have memories of going there as a child and an event that sticks out in your mind?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, there were so many times and so many different great experiences. I would say it wasn't as a child, but one of my most memorable experiences was this is prior to working at the Kirby Center. It was my father's birthday the year he was retiring as a principal at Dallas. And he always made this joke that, he couldn't wait to retire because he was going to watch The Price is Right every morning, right? And then The Price is Right was coming to the Kirby Center. So our whole family all bought tickets, bought him a ticket, and that's how we celebrated his birthday. And there's something about sitting there watching, whether it's music or comedy or dance up on the stage by yourself or with a friend or with your partner, but then having a whole group of people that are your favorite people and you're laughing and there's this, they're really engaged with the audience. That one sticks out the most for me because I got to just enjoy it with my whole family. And we didn't have to travel to New York. We didn't have to have this added expense of a hotel and this whole weekend. It was just went for dinner at Rodano's, went over to the Kirby Center, and it was just such a highlight.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. I remember, maybe more than 20 years ago. I saw some movies there as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I saw Rocky there, and I think when it was still the Paramount.
Yeah.
But I remember for a Christmas gift one year, I just bought my family Copperfield tickets.
Okay.
We went there as the whole family to
Yeah.
to see David
A lot of
Copperfield.
people saw David
He
Copperfield
made
there.
it snow in there inside the building. I don't know how he did that.
Right, I don't know how he
but
did
that's
that
why
either.
he's David Copperfield. What is, in your opinion, the charm of the Kirby? I mean, it's elegant.
Mm-hmm.
It's big, but yet there's some intimacy to it too. It's not Madison Square Garden, you
Right.
know? And so there's different intangibles that make it what it is. What, in your opinion, makes it a wonderful place to see a show?
I think my answer probably changes every year, and I think this year and today it's really just that beautiful Art Deco look of the building. You walk in and you feel like you're in the most special place, which in my opinion you are. I think it's wonderful when you hear audience members saying there's not a bad seat in the theater, whether you're in the first row or in the very last row of the balcony. And I think watching the diversity that we had on stage this year, from family shows to jam bands to comedians, no matter the audience, they all appreciate the beauty of it, whether that's the carpet and the beautiful gold and brass that goes throughout the whole building. And our staff has such great pride in the beauty of it. So I think that's really what sets us apart, I think, from so many others, is the way that we really take care of that building and how much it means to everybody in the community. I think, even a Kirby member who comes perhaps 3 or 4 times a month, every time they walk in, they just kind of look up and they look around, and I think they're all just so mesmerized by its beauty.
I found myself doing the same thing
Yeah.
twice last week. I was there for the Hall of Fame event, Luzerne County, and then I was there a few nights later for a reception.
The donor
that
recognition
you
event,
had.
yeah.
And I'm always drawn to all of the gold.
I know.
It's
beautiful.
I look up and the gold is really, I think, a signature part of the building.
Right.
You were talking about your staff and the pride that they have, and I think that's so important too. When a community makes a monumental effort, like it did almost 40 years ago, you have a big anniversary coming up in 2 years. Mm-hmm. There's so many big anniversaries in 2026. Not only America, but there's a couple of other things that we've been noting recently. But when a community makes a monumental effort like that, you can't just let it go. You have the maintenance is a huge part of it.
Yeah.
It looks just as beautiful today, frankly better than it did in 1986.
Yeah.
Talk about your team. How many folks are employed at the Kirby? Is it a large team, a mid-sized team?
I think compared to others, it's maybe sometimes a little bit bigger, but then you look at a bigger venue and it's like, how do you do it with such a small staff? There's about 18 of us, but that's every day. That's our typical full-time staff. But then when we have a show night, we have our front of house staff. That's taking tickets, selling popcorn, working the bars. And then we have obviously all of our great volunteers that come in.
Ushers,
all the ushers. We have all the union members up on the stage doing all of the sound and the lighting. So on a typical day, there's 17, 18 of us. On a show night, sky's the limit, depends on the show.
And and a lot of those ushers are been there a long time.
Yes, they
and
have.
They love doing that.
Yes, and they do love it. And there's such a great camaraderie with that team. They're all friends, and a couple of us attended one of their 80th birthdays this past summer, and to be invited to something like that not only shows how much they love the Kirby, but they love the people. It truly is a family outside of home.
I can speak firsthand because I've had experiences with almost every component of the building, working with Neil on the marketing or AJ on programming things, and the box office when we did Agnes.
Yeah.
Mike Dale, we did an Agnes documentary, which we showed at the Kirby a few times in 2022. Mike Dale, I work with Rockin' the River, Rockin' the Mountain. Outstanding team of people.
Oh,
really.
They're the best of the best.
Really.
For sure.
Really are. Is there a goal, Joell, like the calendar year, when you look at a facility like yours, where you literally say to your programming team or your entire team, I want to have this building in use X amount of times per year, like 360 times a year. I want to make sure we have at least X amount of events. Is there a goal like that?
I mean, it's kind of an unspoken goal that we're so fortunate that just kind of pans out without having to say, okay, this is what we have to do. We typically have about 100 events a year. And whether that's a stage performance that AJ's working with a promoter on, or if it's Luzerne County Arts and Entertainment Hall of Fame coming and renting our theater and putting their production on. We do a bunch of lobby shows throughout the year. But we do want to make sure, that we are providing something for families, something for children, something for that jam band, and maybe bluegrass audience members. So we analyze what's on the stage and we see what's working and what makes the most sense. There are some shows that we know going in might only sell 500 tickets. But we really want to bring that in for those 500 people that like it. And so as long as it makes sense with our budget, we're going to do what we can to make everybody want to at least come to something throughout the year.
I think that's a wonderful approach too.
Yeah.
We don't, for the show to make sense for the venue or the promoter financially, it doesn't always require the 1,800 seats.
Absolutely.
And so why not do it?
Correct.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You mentioned the diversity and all the genres. I mean, everybody from the Philharmonic to country to rock to comedian to magic shows, children's shows. And really, even just from the Kirby era on, from 86 on, iconic people have walked through your doors, stood on your stage, hung out in your dressing rooms.
I know.
Underneath the Kirby, there's this long, low hallway that takes you from the dressing rooms to different parts of the theater. And I know I've seen the picture, I'm sure a lot of people have, from a few years ago of Ringo Starr in the hallway. Times where I've been there, I've thought about this, and I know I was recently talking about this with Neil, your marketing director. Do you ever think, as you're walking through those gallows or across that stage or in those dressing rooms, of some of the people that have been there?
I have, and two of my favorites that I wish I had the opportunity to see, and that whenever I stand on the stage, just a normal day, and I look out at at the seats in the theater, I mean, it still takes your breath away and almost makes you a little bit nervous because I'm not a performer. It's like, oh my gosh, thank God it's empty. But I think of, Tony Bennett, Johnny Cash. I mean, how cool would that have been?
Oh, yes.
And we do say it is 1,832 seats. Like, that is a nice, great size theater, but that is extremely intimate to see a performer like that.
Sure,
I mean,
is.
you are right there. And last year we had Bonnie Raitt, who is, another legend in my eyes. And I'll tell you, she sounded like she didn't even age. She has not changed. That voice is still so powerful and so beautiful. And we're just so lucky that we can have that type of talent, that we're that close to them. We're right in front of them. It's pretty amazing.
And some of them have come back multiple times and like
Yep.
it. I mean, you talk about the Pattons, George Burns, Rodney Dangerfield, Copperfield, Bob Dylan, Diana Ross, Aretha Franklin.
Yeah.
But Jerry Seinfeld, for example,
Yeah.
multiple times now.
Yeah.
And Jerry loves the Kirby.
He loves the Kirby. And yeah, it's about every 2 years that he comes, and gets funnier every time, sells 2 shows out every time. So we'll take him back whenever he wants to come. And I think, again, it's a beautiful theater. We have a great staff. They get whatever they need. We do whatever it takes to make them happy. And it's seamless for them. So they come in, do what they do, and they're out.
Now, I know just from working in arts and entertainment myself a little, in a different way over the years, but, if I was covering a concert or something, and sometimes I met the artist, 80% of the time I didn't.
Yeah.
But sometimes you do.
Yeah.
And I've had some nice experience. Can you share a great experience that you've had with someone that came in that was just a delight?
Yeah, I think it
you
really.
don't have to pick just one either.
Yeah, everybody has their own thing. Like, comedy is my thing, and we have had some really impressive people on stage. The one that is most memorable for me, and it was because it was basically like my first big show right after taking over as executive director, was Kevin James. And because I didn't come from the programming side, and I hadn't seen what goes on with the production and with the tours coming in, I really am hands off. I don't run down there and want to see them. They're there doing their job as well, and I want to.
You don't want to be intrusive.
I don't ever want to be intrusive. That's the last thing I would ever want to hear. Right. So I did speak with the promoter. I'm like, is there any chance? And he was like, of course. And I mean, it was as though he was just part of the crew, because he wasn't dressed yet to go on stage. He was in real casual clothes, and we just kind of met in the hallway of the dressing rooms. And he's like, "Hey, Joell," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, it's actually you, and you're saying my name." It was a really, really cool experience for me.
Cool.
Yeah. But Bonnie Raitt was just such a doll. She was so nice to everyone, and just thanking us for everything that we had provided for them. She was very sweet, because you just never know. Again, she had been out all day. She had been on stage all night. I'm sure she was exhausted, like anyone would be. And as she's walking out, she made sure to say goodbye to all of us and thank us for everything. And it really humanizes these people that you've idolized, for so long in doing what they do.
I love to hear a story like that.
Yeah.
I think everybody does.
Yeah.
I think everybody listening or watching this will appreciate that.
Just the other night, a bunch of us met Andrew Dice Clay. And, he has his persona, and he is who he is on stage. And not to say that he wouldn't be a nice guy, because he's hilarious. And I think every funny person is nice, because that's my thing. But just such a nice guy, and wanted to take a selfie. And he did it himself, because I'm sure he likes it done a certain way. But, just very welcoming to all of our staff. And they even said ahead of time, they had told our ops director, Bobby, he'll love to meet the staff, so come on in and meet him. And, we just try to respect their wishes. And, if they don't want to be bothered, there are staff that are going to have to be working with them and bringing things in and working around them. So we just try to respect their wishes. And if they want to meet us, it's always a fun day.
That's another great addition to the Kirby recently is Bobby, who came in as operator. I knew Bobby from Briggs Farm for years. Yeah. And was so happy to see him land there at the Kirby.
Yeah, he does amazing things with Briggs Farm. And I had the opportunity, since meeting him, to kind of watch him during that weekend. And he puts so much work into it, and then is right back in the office that Monday doing the same thing for us. And so it's, he has this interesting role that was Drew Taylor had held, that I'm sure a lot of people know, where he's working with the tours. He's working on all the riders and advancing all the needs for them, both with Mike on tech, with Jason on hospitality, but then he's also our building guy. So, he could be dealing with, okay, we have 1,500 people coming in tonight. Do we have all of our front of house scheduled? Do we have everything ready for the tour? Oh, is the air conditioner working? Are there any pipes leaking because we're an old building and every day something is happening? So he's only been there, I hired him, so he's only been there about 2 years. Actually, it was 2 years last week, and he's just killing it.
I was at an event at the Kirby a couple of years ago. I think it may have been one of our Agnes screenings, and I went over to Rodano's afterwards, which for those not listening is a popular restaurant right next door in Franklin's. And it must have been 2 hours later, and I'm leaving, and I see Drew showing up, and I guess a fire alarm went off.
Yep.
And there was nothing. But I mean,
sure, it happens.
The operations. So Bobby gets that call now, right?
Bobby gets that call. Mike Dale gets that call a lot because Mike Dale's kind of right down the street. He's a little bit closer in proximity, so the two of them are the ones that get those calls and determine whether it's real or not, and have to go down sometimes even
Already
if it's
home
not.
for the night,
Exactly.
Call back.
Exactly.
Take us through a typical day at the Kirby, Joelle. Let's say you got a big concert coming in. Let's say it's you just had America. Did a great show a few weeks ago.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
What time do things start? What happens throughout the day?
Yeah.
When do you finally get to go home?
So I'm going to base this story not on me because I'm going to base it on someone like a Mike Dale, a Bobby, a Jason Harris. So it really depends on the tour, but I would say, a typical one, they're coming in 8, 9 o'clock for an evening show. They're coming in 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. And we have our union stagehands there, and they're getting the stage ready, and they're starting to work it out. Jason is getting hospitality all ready for the dressing rooms. Our maintenance team is there getting everything set up for whatever the tour is going to need in the dressing rooms. And then there's sound check, obviously, throughout the afternoon. There's different needs that they're going to need throughout the day, whether that's tech and Mike is dealing with it, or the tour needs things that Bobby and Jason need to deal with. The promoter is working with AJ, a lot of times coming into the building and spending the day with us. And then, the show goes on. It's very exciting. Show comes down, and it could be, depending on if it's a comedian, they could be gone in an hour. If it's a big production, it could be 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. And that would be Mike Dale. That's, still there with the stagehands. Our maintenance team cleaning up because we have a show the next day possibly. And again, Bobby and Jason will be counting all the registers and again, setting them up for the next day. And so there's that financial end of it too, is like closing up that show. And AJ will be doing the same with the promoter and closing that one out to just start it all over the next day. And there are times, especially in our busy months like December, and then our spring is just packed where, people like Bobby, Jason, and Mike are going to be there till midnight and then opening up again that next day at 7 o'clock in the morning to do it all over again. And I'll tell you, that's one of the things that I respect most about everybody that works there is there's not a complaint. It's not like, I'm here so late tonight, I'm going to be here tomorrow. I mean, Mike Dale, I swear, I think it keeps him going. If it wasn't that busy, I don't even think he'd like his job. He loves it.
I work with Mike at Rock in the River, and we get there at 8 a.m. and we're there. I can usually cut out around 10. Mike's still there.
Of course. He's not okay unless he's the last person there.
Right.
Which, for someone like me who is gone, is a relief to know that someone reliable that knows the building, that knows what he's doing, that he's the one locking up at the end of the night. And so, you can't ask for better than that.
And that team, you mentioned Jason too. Where you pulled these people from, like AJ was Carl Hall and Neil was at VIA and Bobby was at Briggs, Jason at the Woodlands.
It's insane how lucky.
It's like an all-star team, really.
It honestly is. The Kirby Center just got so lucky. But then on top of that, we have people like Tina in the box office,
I love
right? And Marion that's working finance.
Molly,
these people have been there 15, 20 years. And someone like Molly who's doing a dual working, in the box office, but also with Neil doing social media. Everybody is just like the best at what they do. And I think about that very often. I think of Al Boskov. I think of Fred Morgan Kirby, right? Gus Giannetti, who is still a strong force within our organization. And sometimes I sit back on a good day and I think they'd be proud. I think they'd be happy with, the team that's in place and the respect that we pay to the building and to the community offering these things. And it would be hard to feel that way with anyone else in those positions because, again, like you said, it's the A team. That's that all-star league.
And that team of yours, a little over a year ago, was faced with a very big challenge. when you had a serious flooding of the basement. You were at a conference out of town, I remember you mentioning, and you get the call that you've got big problems at the venue.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that. What exactly happened?
Yeah.
Where were you? How did you react? And obviously, here we are a year later, and wonderful renovations have been done as a result of that. But take us through that whole thing. Yeah,
sure. I was in Nashville at an entertainment buyers conference. I was there along with AJ Jump. I just, love to hear him talk to these promoters, see what's out there that we can be bringing in this year. And it was our last full day, and about 3-4 o'clock in the morning, so because we were an hour behind. I was on the phone with the fire department that's just said, you're taking on water at a really fast pace, and we can't get it off, and we're working through it. So my first call was to our ops team, and Art Dale, and who's head of our maintenance within our building, and Mike Dale were the first two on site, and were really instrumental in removing, getting the water out kind of as it was coming in, trying to fight it. So it turned out that we had about 500,000 gallons of water. So the lower level of our building is over 11,000 square feet, and at its highest point, it was 6 feet high. To say it was devastating. It was, and I've said this tagline so many times this year. It was truly the greatest devastation since Agnes for our building. And it was an isolated incident. It was just our building. But what we house down there are not just offices and some gallery space, but another bar for when we have a sold out show like a Bonnie Raitt, another set of restrooms for both men and women, which was the hardest part of having a show last year, were those long lines at the restrooms, which I know, for an event space, that's a big deal. Because we have people coming in for the first time saying, yeah, the acoustics are great, the theater was beautiful, but I missed half the show because I'm standing in line. We don't want them to think that's our normal practice. Most importantly, our dressing rooms were down there. All of our lighting and electrical is hubbed in the basement. So our marquee was affected because of the power surge. We had no stage lighting. So we had to rent stage lighting for 9 months, and then just replace those dimmer racks that had been ruined. But we had great teams working on it. I ended up flying home that day and walked through the building that night. And, it was also, that was the one night that it was more kind of emotional rather than, and like, where do we start kind of thing. And then literally that next day was boom, like just hit the ground running and never stopped. But Mike Dale has been there for 15 years. We were just talking about him. And this is a guy that's worked with every tour that's come through this building for 15 years and, has a piece of memorabilia from every single one of those performances. And, it's heartbreaking to see, him that night just picking things up and having to ultimately just throw them away, signed posters, different really cool things. And also these guys kind of live there, right? So they had a lot of personal property that was like, oh, I'll just keep it here at work because I had to run an errand. And so it was, that piece of it was just sad for them. But again, when I say how our staff thinks of all of the community members that came together to make this building what it was just like, man, the bar is set high. We've got to make this work. We not only want to fix it for our current programming and for our current kind of fiscal year of getting these people in, selling them drinks, making our attendees happy, but also what will this building look like? This is the opportunity we have to move it forward for the next 50 years, right? Because we had kind of done all those renovations 52 years ago, was it, from Agnes. So there were little things here and there that we were able to upgrade, and our community supported us in those efforts. I mean, it was, originally they were estimating it to be about a $4 million insurance claim. And so we were really fortunate to have that insurance coverage to get us back to where we were. But a lot of things, it's like you have this opportunity, even though you want to go really fast and get it fixed so that we could just keep moving. It's like everything is gutted. So this is the opportunity right now to say, what is this better utilized for? How is this going to make us better at what we do? How is this going to make us more efficient with the tours and what we need to provide to them? How is it going to make it better for our audience that's coming in? So we were able to do a lot of those things. We did change the sizing of the bar downstairs. So there used to just be space for one bartender. Now there's two. We were able to make the bathrooms a little bit bigger so that, more people can utilize them. And then in our gallery space, we were able to make this, what used to be a bar, and we don't use it as a bar. It's not open to the public. So we turned it into more of like a little kitchen area with a food warmer and a big refrigerator and a sink because, we have caterers that come in for these tours and they're feeding that crew in that room. So this just makes it easier for them, and it makes it, again, just more efficient. So
you really turned an unfortunate situation into an opportunity.
We did. We did, and it was one of those things, like, we really wanted to do it, but we also didn't want to take years to rebuild it. I mean, especially,
you didn't have years, yeah.
Right, especially as a nonprofit, any kind of capital project takes a lot of strategic planning, a lot of thought, a lot of people, a lot of opinions, and then a lot of fundraising campaigns. We had like a month to really sit down with the designer and sit down with Quad 3, a great partner of ours, to say what makes the most sense. And, we kind of walked through, okay, like you just asked, what happens on a typical show day? Well, we're feeding our tours down here and all of the crew, and this is what we could use that would make it better. We have tour managers or promoters that are coming in, and sometimes they're sitting in my office or they're sitting in AJ Jump's office because they need a space if the dressing rooms are full. Let's build them an office. Let's put some walls up in this empty space that we have over here and make it better for everyone that's doing work in this building. And luckily, within a year, before a year was up, we were able to get it finished. And it's a really proud moment. I think there are certainly things that there's a ton of things we probably could have done differently and added to it. But I think what we came up with for right now is it's perfect.
Well, I compliment you and your team on that, because I think a lot of times the initial reaction would be, we got to replace. Yeah. We got to get it back. We loved how it was. We got to get it back to what it was. Yeah. And you went beyond that. Yeah. And took the opportunity for improvement. Since the pandemic, which I'd like to think we've kind of fully put it in the rearview mirror when it comes to arts and entertainment and everything. But we haven't in downtown Wilkes-Barre. And that's not unique to Wilkes-Barre. Yeah. I'm sure if you went down to lower Manhattan into the Wall Street area, you are seeing a lot less people working in those buildings, stockbrokers and so forth, than there were 4 or 5 years ago. Yep. Because it shifted the workforce nationwide with the work from home option. Yep. And so the last information that I received from Diamond City Partnership, I think we're maybe still at maybe 50% or so of what we were pre-COVID. And why I mention this is because, so you don't have as many people at lunchtime, and so businesses are more reliant on other things than having, there might be a few thousand less people than there were a few years ago. And that's why I think the Kirby is so important, because when the Kirby has a show, downtown is kicking. Yep. And I love it. I could tell when you have a show. Oh yeah. When I don't know that you have a show on my calendar, because I'll come down the public square and I will see the cars and I will see Franklin's and Radano's and the restaurants, and so that, do you feel like post-COVID that your role, it was always a centerpiece of downtown Wilkes-Barre, and those things always happen, but do you think it's even more important now, your role in downtown Wilkes-Barre post-COVID? I
don't think it's more important. I think it just reinforces how important it's always been. Yes. When you the right way to phrase it. Yeah, I think when you look at what this building and what this staff has faced, as far as adversity, we were shut down for 16 months with COVID, and then last year with the flood. Anytime you see it, a chance of, what's happening, or we had to shut down for a week or two with the flood, it was like, are they going to return? We're always going to return. Yeah. I can't imagine it not returning. And I think, whenever you talk to Frank Radano, who's the owner of Radano's and Franklin's next door, if it's a quiet week, he says, when are you getting back on stage? Because, their place is full. Cafe Toscana, completely full. Our local hotels, full. And it was interesting because when our marquee was down from the flood, it's just so dark down there, right? And maybe I'm biased because I love our marquee, but there's nothing better than on a show night when all the lights underneath the marquee are lit. And it's like, ooh, that's it. This is the square. In fact, when there's any downtown event, they always call us like, hey, could you put those lights on? Because it's the exciting part of downtown. And like I said, I think it just reinforces how important it's always been and the economic impact that it has in downtown. And actually just our surrounding area is impressive. I mean, the last time we did a study was in 2018, and it was, $9 million in local economic impact. So, I'm excited that we're back on a track where we can do a study like that again. Obviously with COVID, everything had changed. Being shut down for 16 months, our first show back, it was like gangbusters. It was like sold out. So we knew the community, and the majority of them were ready. And, it was selecting those shows that were like, okay, we know this type of audience is ready. This type of audience, maybe not so much. So let's again, kind of have that strategic plan of what's going to work, what's not. And yeah, I mean, I think as far as the COVID return, we were a strong force in bringing back some life into downtown.
Absolutely, and thank you for that.
Yeah.
You mentioned that marquee. But it was New Year's Eve of 2021.
It's my screensaver.
I took a picture.
Yes, you did.
From our old office on Public Square because I was coming over. I was coming over for the Led Zeppelin tribute, and we have that in our lobby.
I know you do.
It just captures the energy of the.
Yep.
Yes, that's right. You requested a
copy.
copy.
I love that picture. It's on my desktop on my computer.
I gotta get a print of that for you. I'm gonna get a print.
It's just great because it's just a candid picture. It looks professional, but just to know it was you taking it, going into the show. That's the feeling that people have. They're excited. The lights are bright, and then you walk into this beautiful Art Deco building. I mean, it's just, I think some of us, in Wilkes-Barre, you might get tired of, oh, we have this beautiful thing in Wilkes-Barre. There's tons of beautiful things in Wilkes-Barre, right? But we just add to that great excitement of different things to do so close to home, and not having to take that 2-hour trip to a bigger city where we have the same acts. We have the same thing going on.
And it's something that a lot of cities our size don't have.
Yeah.
They don't have that centerpiece downtown beautiful theater. So we're very fortunate.
Yeah.
Joell, what is your favorite part of your job?
Well, I think I just everything that I had just said is kind of puts it into a nutshell. I mean, I love working with our staff because, again, like we said earlier, they are this all-star team where they all have such great ideas, and they're, respectfully challenging one another to see would this work or how does that work. And they always have our community at the forefront of, we owe this, or let's underwrite this program because this is something we should really bring into our community. I love what we do for children in our community. But, I think the coolest part of my job is in the morning, we come through a side door, which is just the back of the theater. So I love that theater. It's just so beautiful. And those red velvet chairs, just being able to see those and walk right by them. And then, we're up in our office, we're doing our thing. And then if it's a show night, just going downstairs and seeing this is right below my office. This is what I'm doing. And I'm standing here watching, maybe children coming in all dressed up for a holiday show with their parents, knowing this is going to be a memory that they'll have for the rest of their lives. And I get to stand here and witness that. It's a very humbling feeling being in my position because, 8:30 to 4:30, I'm, working with donors. I'm working with our staff. I'm working, alongside AJ, talking to different promoters, if there's a conversation happening there. It's very cool to be on the business side of it, but then being able to see it all come to fruition. I mean, in my position, hearing what all of our ops team is doing and hearing what AJ's doing with the promoters and hearing what Mike is doing with tech and hearing what Tina and her team is doing in the box office, I think, oh my gosh, this is so much. Like, are we going to get this done? And then it just flows and it's effortless, or at least they make it look like that.
That's
So
fantastic.
yeah, it's a really, really cool job.
I'm going to switch gears on you now here for
Okay.
just a little bit. We talked for quite a bit about the Kirby Center.
Yeah.
Now we're going to give the folks listening or watching the podcast the opportunity to learn just a little bit about you. So we'll call it, this is, don't even have to elaborate on the question. Just first thing that comes to mind.
Okay. It's not that exciting, so
What do you enjoy
might
doing?
be time to change channel.
What do you enjoy doing in your free time?
Oh, free time.
When you have it?
When I have it. I love going to brunch.
Brunch.
Had brunch yesterday. Had a great day. Loved it. Yeah. Bloody Mary with my husband, having brunch. It's one of the things I love to do.
That's how you chill?
Yeah, for
Awesome.
sure.
Okay. Favorite music? All-time favorite artist?
Oh, boy.
I'll give you a couple. You don't have to pick one.
Right. I mean, I'm thank God not the programmer like AJ Jump is, but for me, I don't know if I have just one. I love Tony Bennett, Frank Sinatra. I was raised on all of that kind of music,
Okay.
Casey and the Sunshine Band, Three Dog Night, things like that. But I love, Michael Jackson, right? In anything, basically, growing up in the 80s and 90s. Probably not the biggest country fan, but I love 90s country.
Oh, yeah.
I can probably, if I'm in the car and a song comes on, I could probably sing those fast versions of random songs that I would never think to name right now. So I'm really across the board. I really love it all. I again was kind of raised with oldies and the Sinatras and Tony Bennett's, and so I
We just
love
had
all
a nice
of that.
Sinatra show at the Kirby recently.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
Yeah, I heard
Yeah.
that was a wonderful show.
Yeah.
All-time favorite movie?
All time is tough. I think I'm surrounded by holiday decorations right now. So, I mean, you just can't beat Chevy Chase Christmas Vacation. Again, it's a family favorite. So,
All right.
yeah.
Favorite TV show, past or present?
Modern Family.
Follow sports? Any teams?
Yes.
Who do you follow?
Penn State,
Penn State
since a child.
Okay.
And the Eagles since I got married.
All right. Both having good years?
Yes.
Favorite holiday?
I love Christmas. I love our family getting together. But I do love something like the 4th of July where you don't have to buy gifts. There's not a ton of pressure. You just have fun outside in the nice weather.
Have a cookout, maybe.
Have a cookout, right.
Watch your neighbors blow stuff up. Right?
Exactly.
Or do it yourself.
Right.
Do you have a favorite book?
I used to be a huge fan of James Patterson. Like a big Dateline kind of person. So
Oh, yeah.
I loved his. I don't have a particular favorite.
Okay. What is your favorite city outside of Wilkes-Barre? Of course?
I mean, it's New York. I love New York.
New York City.
Yeah, I lived in New York for a couple of years. And it's one of those cities where you love it so much one day and you can really hate it the next day. But it just has so much to offer. I think living there you've got to be doing really, really well to have the kind of lifestyle I would want. Like to have a ride everywhere I go, and not walk 40 blocks to someplace.
It's my favorite city as well.
But it's just awesome.
Yeah, it's there's nothing like it.
Yeah.
What about vacation spot? Do you have a favorite place to go?
I don't think I have a favorite place to go. Family-wise, we do Wildwood Crest,
There you go.
New Jersey.
Jersey Shore.
Jersey Shore.
It's a very Pennsylvania thing.
Exactly. So that always brings me some nice peace and hanging out with the family for a few days. I have been to Italy and want to get back to Italy to some different areas there. So I don't think I have. I think anytime, you're off work and you're kind of away, I don't care if I'm in Bloomsburg. I'm just enjoying the moment you're in.
Do you have something about you that even your friends would be surprised by? Like, I didn't know that Joell liked to do this, or that she did that, or something. I skydived, or is there something about you that maybe most people that have met you would be surprised to learn?
Gosh, that's a good question. It's not interesting. I mean, I'm I work my best under stress. That's such a boring thing. I don't know.
No, some people,
trying to think of something cool.
Some people don't like that.
Like I'm really good at flip cup or something like that, right? I will, maybe this is a fun little fact. My very first concert was the Up in Smoke concert up at Montage with Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre.
I was there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's, in keeping with the theme of
and everything that you said before about music, you didn't mention that type of thing either.
Exactly.
So,
well, yeah, I mean, I love.
So that's
love
part
rap
of it too.
and-
All right, that is interesting.
Okay.
So you saw was Jay-Z on that? No, Jay-Z was on another bill up there, I think.
Yeah,
but,
all I remember, Dr. Dre was there.
Yeah, I remember.
Eminem.
Yeah.
But man, that was like 30 years ago.
No,
20 or 25 years
like
ago.
25.
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah. So I don't remember the exact lineup, but
I got a review of that somewhere. I'll see if I can pull it out. We'll see. We'll see. We'll
maybe
refresh
I was quoted in it by
refresh our memories together.
Yeah.
My last question for you. Who in your life, had the greatest, impact on you? Who are the most influential person or people that have helped make you the person that you are today and led to where you're at?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And, my answer's a bit cliche because I don't just have one person. But if I have to limit it down to this small bucket, it would be my parents through and through because, I watched them work so hard at their career and also at their family. And they made it look effortless, and that's the way I grew up. Okay, you work hard, and then you play hard. You get to have fun, and you get to enjoy your family. So I've always had a really great work ethic because of them, and I think that's why I am where I am today. And also, I care a lot about what they think of me. I want to make them proud. So they're a huge part of every decision that I make, as far as my life choices and my career. But then also, there's so many people along the road, right? Like, I said I lived in New York. My aunt lived there and invited me. So I wouldn't have had that opportunity to sit here and say, I lived in New York for 5 or 6 years because my aunt helped me do that. But then my husband really made me look at things differently once I started my life with him, as far as my work and what I'm doing. And I think, honestly, if I didn't have his encouragement and his perspective on things, I might still be at Helping Hand Society. Right. I might still be at that first job I had when I met him. Sure. So I don't have just that one person. I just have such a great, strong village that I absolutely credit for being where I am today.
And we're happy that where you are today.
Thanks,
and
Alan.
we appreciate all that you do at the Kirby Center. And we really want to thank you for being our very first guest on the Next Stop podcast.
Well, I know for now, next time I'll have some better answers. I gotta start thinking, what don't people know about me? Because that is such a good question. I can't wait to hear other people's answers.
I think we're going to ask it every month. So
You definitely should. It's a good one.
Joell Yarmel, Executive Director of the FM Kirby Center. Thank you again for joining us today. Thank you.